Hello there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Die, die, yenu, die, die, yenu, die, die. Yeah, I've got no rhythm. I'm going to do my Friday reads. I've got to catch up for the last 3 weeks. I haven't done one of these, so all the things that I've read in the last 3 weeks, I'll talk about that. Before I get to that, I want to talk about some other things that I've got, because this is going up hopefully on Friday, and Friday evening is the first night of Passover, so we will be having the traditional family seder night, where we all gather around the table and retell the story of the Jews as slaves in Egypt, and then the plagues and the escaping from Egypt, and everything that goes along with that. It's a fun evening. It's been, I've been having Seder night since I was a kid in my own family, and now that I'm an adult, I get to lead it. My kids will be here. My in-laws are coming in, and then my mum is arriving this week, so she's doing Seder in England with my sister, and then she'll join us here for a month. So I thought, before I do the books that I'm reading, I thought I'd talk about the books that we'll be reading on Seder night. And the book that everyone reads on Seder night, or traditionally, is called the Haggadah, which is just literally means telling, because the obligation is on every Jew on the night of Seder to tell the story of the Jews in Egypt, and to live it as if you were one of the Jews in Egypt. And it's a night of questions, it's a night of telling stories, it's a night that the kids get very involved. So the youngest person at the Seder night gets to ask the 4 questions at the very start, and the 4 questions all amount to the same thing, which is, why is this night different from all other nights? And there's singing and eating, of course, plenty of eating, although nothing leavened. So for the next 8 days, I won't be having any bread. We only have matzahs, which is sort of a cracker. It's an unleavened bread, and there's other things that are forbidden as well for the next week. It's ups and downs, Passover, but I thought I'd talk you through. So I have 4 examples of haggadahs, and I usually sit at the Seder table with 3 or 4 different books open in front of me at the time, just because I like the variety. So I thought I'd take you through the 4 main ones that I will be referring to tomorrow night as I lead my family and my in-laws in our family Seder. So I have here, this is the New American Haggadah, which I bought about 10 years ago. This was published, and this is interesting. This has a literary merit, because this is edited by the novelist Jonathan Safran Foer, novelist and essayist. The translation of the Hebrew into English is by another writer whose work I've been reading for a number of years. It's Nathan Engleder. So that, as I said, that has some, I've read other books by both Jonathan Safran Foer and Nathan Engleder, and this also has some other great aspects to it. So this is a nice. It's a fairly recent publication. It's only 10 years old, and it's beautifully laid out, and big design, and some great art, and it has running across the top a timeline of Passover through centuries, through millennia even. One second, I just want to make sure I'm crediting it all the right way. So that timeline is created by Mia Sarah Bruch, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you a more recent example. So here, this is towards the end. We're up to 1997, and these are all events that took place in Passover. So 1997, dressed in a black yarmulke, in addition to his traditional scarlet and golden robes, the Dalai Lama is the guest of honor at a seder that ends with the call, "Next year in Lhasa." Guests include Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer and Beastie Boys member Adam Yauch. The Dalai Lama pronounces matzah very tasty and claps along to Dayenu. So that's great, and there's also commentaries, as the timeline is always fun to pick out bits, and there are commentaries by Nathaniel Deutsch, Jeffrey Goldberg, Rebecca Newberger, and Lemony Snicket. So that's also fun. Daniel Handler, I believe, is his actual name. So that's a more recent purchase that I like, and I bought this for a few friends. So I have that. I also have this is a great has all the elements of the Haggadah, all the different prayers and songs that we sing, but also some great commentary by the late former Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. I have a couple of copies of this because I think I bought this and gave it to my dad. And if I'm, 1 second, yeah. So this is the beauty of a Hebrew book. So you have one side, it opens and reads Hebrew style, and then from the other side, there are essays on the English side. And that's my dad's written his name, or written the family name in that. And that's my father's handwriting. I have two copies. I think I bought one for my dad. So nice to have his copy, and I have that with me at the table in his memory. This is the Haggadah that I was given at my bar mitzvah by family friends. To Daniel, June 1982. To Daniel, may you have many happy and prosperous years to enjoy the Haggadah. All good wishes for your future adult life. So this is what I've been using since I'm 13 years old, including here. This is interesting or filthy habit, depending on your point of view. These are the telling of the 10 plagues, and they're there in 2 columns of 5. And one tradition during Seder night is that as you recount, as you list each of the plagues, that you dip your finger in the wine, and you don't lick it, I mark it. So each one of these corresponds to 10 dippings, and then they get pressed in, and I've been doing that for 1982. This is 40 years of wine stains. Not, as I say, not terribly hygienic. There's more over there, but as a part of the some people tradition. Some people just dip it in the wine and then dip it on a napkin or a side plate. But I captured them 40 years worth of that in my Haggadah. And then the last one I have here is the first Haggadah that I had. This is the children's Haggadah. This is a very traditional gift that young kids get. And this was given to me in 1972. I started with 3 years old to darling Daniel, my middle name, a present from Israel, 1972. I didn't even know they'd been to Israel, from my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, in 1972. And so I would have been almost 3. So they're giving me this, and this is a fact. This every kid in the UK, at least, I think, grew up with this this version of the Haggadah. And this is falling apart. I want to be very careful. It has pop-ups and pull-outs, and there's a wheel to turn, so you rotate through the plagues appear in the window, and you can turn it around, and songs and everything in it. So yeah, this is also very precious to me. So in 1972, I was 3. By 1977, they had both passed on. So that was a great thing from that for the generations. Okay, that's enough Pesach that was falling apart. That's enough Passover stuff now. I will take you through the books I read since we last met. So I was talking about Hell of a Book by Jason Mott. I think I just started this. I think we last did one of these 3 weeks ago. This was like a prize-winning novel of last year. And it was okay. This is Jason Mott is an African-American author, and he is writing a book about an African-American author who sometimes isn't sure if he is African-American or not. And he has visions of a child. He's on a book tour as an author, because he's just published a book called Hell of a Book, which people keep telling him is a hell of a book. And it's all a bit eating itself, an author writing about an author writing a book that's the same title as the book that you're reading. And I think it has plenty of solid things to say about the experience and what it means to be black in 21st century America. I think I might have felt slightly more benevolent towards this if I hadn't read Percival Everett's The Trees in recent memory, because that is a fantastic sledgehammer of a book, and this was slightly more sort of literary and trying to do things and play with form, and I didn't have as much patience for this as I might have done had I not already just been battered over the head in the most glorious literary fashion by Everett's book. This was blurbed on the back by Charles Yu, who wrote Interior Chinatown. And I actually think these books somehow are in conversation with each other. So they make a nice pair. So, middling reading experience for me. Certainly, I think when you call yourself, when you write your book and you call it a hell of a book, you kind of sticking yourself into a corner. So some of the reviewers say, yeah, sure lives up to its title. Well, I'm less sure. After that, I read another one of these. This is John Allison's Bad Machinery. These originally published as webcomics. That's why they're this deliciously weird size. Great big panels of certain British school young students, and strange things happen to them all. In this case, I think they're taken over by some alien mushrooms, or it's just a bit potty. I like this one, I guess, slightly. This is what number is this? Is the fourth one I've read. I like this one slightly less than the early ones. Maybe it's running out of steam a little bit. There was always a healthy mix of a sort of story running through the whole thing, but also some standalone panels. This one just seemed less sure of itself. And that is Bad Machinery, The Case of the Lonely One, written and drawn by John Allison. After that, I read Sam Shepard's 7 Plays. I bought this roughly last year. I think it was one of the first outings. I went to the second-hand bookshop just before Passover last year and picked this up, and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I finally got to it and struggled with it. I hadn't read Sam Shepard. I'm aware of Sam Shepard. He's Julia Roberts' professor boyfriend in The Pelican Brief. He was in The Right Stuff. I know of him as an actor, and I was aware of his plays. I think when I was coming up in London, so I'm a student, I think Fall for Love was the big, was on in the UK, and I think that maybe won some prize for that. This is got earlier stuff than that. So the play that I had heard of, I guess, out of this was True West, which is actually the first play in the collection, and I think solid work. I liked True West. I don't think I've ever spoken out. I'm a big fan of David Mamet, who's not gone off rails, not professionally, but just politically, has gone to the right in the last decade or so. But I'm a big fan of his muscular playwriting, and I found True West to be sub Mamet, but fine. But then it kind of went downhill from there. So the other plays collected here. There's a play called The Buried Child, which I think won a Pulitzer or won some major award. And then there is, and then they were just sort of, you talk that small cast, men, very very men, talking to each other and talking over each other and about masculinity, and very dated, I think. I say True West, probably the high point. There was one play here which I found completely unreadable, and that was called, is it that one? No, it's not that one. It's The Tooth of Crime, a play with music in 2 acts, which is a kind of rock and roll musical with one character called Hoss, another one called Starman, and another Galactic Jack, and it's kind of sort of space musical, weird, rock and roll, political. I really got tired of that very quickly. So yeah, struggle with this, and then some sort of things, performance pieces towards the end where it's just poetry on stage. I'm sure this had a place and time where this was considered groundbreaking, and Shepard was a great playwright, and maybe Fall for Love is something special. I need to go back and read that. But other than True West, I really struggled with some of these and found one of them almost completely unreadably bollocks. So that was 7 Plays by Sam Shepard. After that, read some more comics. This is more Nick Spencer. I've read a whole bunch of his stuff. I read 3 volumes. This is a trade paperback. The first 7 issues of The Superior Foes of Spider-Man. The premise here is Spider-Man barely appears in it. These are D-list baddies, rogues from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, who get together and try and pull something off. And it's at a time that I'm not really aware of as Spider-Man, and think has been replaced. Doc Octopus is in Spider-Man's body. Anyway, that's all going on. But so it's about the baddies and how they fight with each other and betray each other. And one in particular, the lead baddie in this is Boomerang. I know Captain Boomerang on DC and the Suicide Squad. I didn't know of Boomerang as a Marvel or one of Spider-Man's rogues. And it's kind of Tarantino-y and trying to be clever, and dialogue is good, but I read Nick Spencer wrote a series called Morning Glories, which he never quite finished. I read 3 volumes of The Fix, which he hasn't finished. This goes on. There are a couple of volumes after this, but I don't really care to read them. I may be done with Nick Spencer. This was okay. And the artwork didn't sell it to me either. Who's the artist here? 1 second. I should give him a name check. Well, not after I've just said I didn't like him very much. It's Lieber is the name. 1 second, let me get that probably. Steve Lieber, Lieber. Yeah, I'll give you a look at that thing. It's sort of, yeah, it just really didn't hard to distinguish actually between some of the characters when they're not in costume. It was hard to tell who they were. What else? Okay, then I read The Great Spy Race by Adam Dement. This is the second in the Philip McAlpine spy series, and I think I spoke about this when I read the first one. So Adam Dement published 4 books and then disappeared from about 67 to 71, and they sold gangbusters. He was this was just as the Bond films were coming out. Here was a more down-to-earth, pot-smoking, sex-addled, reluctant spy called Philip McAlpine, who was co-opted blackmailed or extorted by the British government to take part in various nefarious activities as a spy. So the first one was called the Dolly something. One says it here. I can't remember. The Dolly Spy. And this is The Great Spy Race. It's kooky. So, yeah, very sort of retrograde and a little misogynist and maybe even a little bit racist. This was a bit breezier than the first one was great, just sort of very much of its time. This was a little breezier, a little better sense of humour about itself and a romp. As I say, I don't think they stand up super well today, but I guess better than maybe at least as good as Bond, which was always a little po-faced Ian Fleming, who I don't think was a big fan of Adam Dement, and Adam Dement was the sort of young upstart going up against Fleming. But the Adam Dement story is interesting, just that he published 4 books and then decided he didn't want to have any more to do with it. So I read the first 2. The second 2 now are hard to find. I think the 4th one in particular goes for like £100 if you can find a paperback copy. But I'm pleased I have this lovely old battered pan. I picked them both up for like £3.50, and they were good fun. And maybe one day I'll chase down the next 2 if I can ever find them at reasonable prices. But I would love, editions like this. I want something battered and beaten up, and then I could have them on the shelf. That was The Great Spy Race by Adam Dement. After that, I read All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Taves. I think that's how you say it. Taves, Canadian writer. This was on my radar. This was a sort of I think a booktuber called the Book Bully had raved about this, and then lots of other people have spoken about it as well. I had never read any Miriam Taves, and I know her new book has also had some great reviews, and this was her 6th or 7th novel. But I didn't really know what I was getting into. So, spoiler alert, it's an awful lot of suicidal ideation here, and I took this away when we went away for the weekend, last weekend, to stay in Jerusalem. My wife's sister was over with her husband, and we all went away for the weekend, had a lovely Shabbat by the pool in Jerusalem, upstairs on the roof of this beautiful hotel, and read this, and it's just a lot of wanting to commit suicide, which may be triggering for some, so apologies. It's funny. There's some great writing, and it's very funny, but I was not. Normally I have a sort of idea of what the plot is going to be going into something, and I just picked this up because of all the great reviews, and I love the title. Great title, All My Puny Sorrows. And from the very first page, you are hearing about someone wanting to commit suicide, and then you've got like 300 pages of them trying and failing, and then just a lot heavy, even though it leavened with humour and beautifully written. I just don't think I needed to read all of that. And oh yeah, of course it's all set in or at least the people have grown up in a Mennonite community. I don't know much about Mennonites, so I've learned from this book as much of anything that I've ever known about who Mennonites are. And then, of course, reading afterwards, you find out that the author grew up with her sister in a Mennonite community, and many of the events in this book mirror things that happened in Miriam Taves' real life, including things that happened to close family members, which happened to the close family members of the narrator of this book. I've said in the past that I'm not a fan of books as therapy. It may be cathartic for an author to put on paper, either fictionalized or as a memoir, to work through things that they've gone through, and I don't always find that terribly rewarding as a reader. Things like, I've mentioned in the past, a book called Imagine Me Gone by Adam Hazlitt, and what's the Susie Salmon one? What's her name? You know what I mean? Oh, God. Anyway, I struggle with books like that. I think this was the least worst of those. So even though I think it's something that the author is working through, and we are there as the reader to, as witness to the catharsis, I thought this was funny and elegant. I just thought that there was 300 pages of suicidal ideation that I might have lived without. After that, read another comic book, totally an unnecessary one. This is some reboot of the Fantastic Four from a few years ago, written by Matt Fraction. That's why I picked this one up on eBay, and must have cost me a couple of quid. The thing going against it, it has artwork, or some of the artwork in it is by a chap called Mike Allred, who I never really got on with. I quite like Fraction's writing on some other stuff, and I've got other work by him, and I'll read more of him, but not a big fan of Mike Allred. This is Allred's artwork. That's Ant-Man, I believe. Here's my take. So the story is this is the traditional Fantastic Four. You've got Reed Richards and the Human Torch and Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, their brother and sister, and Sue Storm is married to Reed Richards, and this is Ben Grimm, the Thing. They all got battered by cosmic radiation. Reed Richards is brilliant genius. They went up in space, got battered by cosmic radiation, got their superpowers. Anyway, something's happened, and they've got to go off to another universe and find out what's happened. And they're going to be gone for about a year in their experience, but probably only about 15 minutes in Earth's experience. But they go out and hire and ask for people to stand in for the Fantastic Four while they're away. And those people are Scott Lang, Ant-Man. This is Medusa of the Inhumans. That is She-Hulk, getting her own TV show soon on Marvel Plus with Tatiana Maslany. And that is, I don't know who she is. I think she's Johnny Storm's girlfriend in a Benjamin, in a Thing suit. Anyway, a bit weird. Anyway, plot ensues. Here's my takeaway from this. Reed Richards, and I've been coming to this feeling for a while now, around Civil War and other things that have gone on. Reed Richards is just a bit of a dick. And Sue Storm is in an abusive marriage because he's a dick. That's my hot take on the Fantastic Four. Come at me if you think Reed Richards is a really good guy, and I think Sue Storm needs to get out. I mean, she could turn invisible. She could just disappear anytime she wants. But I guess Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, that is everything that I've read in the last few weeks. This is what I'm reading now. I probably won't be doing much reading tomorrow night because it's seder night. But over the week, I will be reading Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. I'm just 10 pages in. I'm looking forward to this. Take care. I wish you all Chag Pesach, sameach, or a happy Easter, or Ramadan kareem, or none, or all of those things as you would wish yourselves. Take care. God bless. Bye.